Going on, everyone? I'm gonna just post a quick video. This is off the cuff. It's not from any political theory or from like critical theory or something like that. Um, and so this is an argument saying that when you participate in ideology and it's not grounded philosophically or foundationally, there's always these biases which exacerbate as you scale society, right? So ideology becomes more difficult to maintain when you have a larger society, and so there's two things I want you to look at. So I'm going to make two sort of different arguments. And so the first thing that I would offer up is that if we look at the story of American independence and the founding of our nation, and the years that followed, um, the from one side of the aisle, the very narrow point of view is that what the United States was stating unequivocally was that we are supporting this idea of freedom, liberty, choice, and almost this anarchic, mart approach to ideas and policy. And so, if that also means that we have absolutely horrible, horrendous ideas, which even by modern standards and even by what civilized people should know is absolutely it's deserving of reproach, then that doesn't matter. Um, and this is largely what we saw. If you look at the United States, there was almost always a platform and a voice for things like civil rights. Um, um, you know, uh, you know, Even like black nationalism, had a place to speak, and it didn't change anything, right? For many years, it did very little to do anything other than change individual hearts and minds. It was not made into policy. If you want to be very technical and literal, until the probably like the 80s and 90s, right? And it's in a lot of ways it's still going to way today, at least in smaller ways it's still going today. Same thing with like things like women's suffrage. So you have this space emerging where there's inequality, there's social stratification, there's political repression to some extent, to a large extent, but you also have this ideology of liberalism. And so I just want to contrast this with what people normally say about free markets, right? In a marketplace of ideas, in an anarchic system which is driven by information and free speech. If you talk to let's say Google did a round of layoffs and you talk to 15 different Google engineers and asked if they wanted to start a company, they might say no, but they would say, oh, this is easy, right? We're supposed to learn that venture capital is really hard. It's really difficult to find an idea and to build it and to actually build a business, right? Build a business worth millions of dollars. But when you actually ask people, oh, it's really easy. It's really easy, right? You just have to meet someone, you have something that's clickable, you have a few people using it, and someone's going to write you a check for $5 or $10 million. And so this is sort of this contrasting view. This is the other thing I want you to see is that you know um, when you have I don't know what the necessarily the root cause of this is, but you have almost this T shape where you say, well, the way this works is easy and we just have to do the work. And this is the result of hard work and industriousness and all of these things. And so Yeah, and so I think this sort of holds a little bit in, when we look outside of the US and we look at political regimes that themselves are authoritarian. They might have certain indicators for certain groups of people that indicate they're running a market based system based on choice, preference, and information. Um, and I think you always get this view where people say, well, it's actually a lot easier than what you say it is. It's a lot easier than what you say it is. Um, and so yeah, I don't know if I had a conclusion to the video or if I had like an actual argument. But if we relate this back to ideology, it's not about thinking. My argument is it's not about thinking and doing and saying in general. Uh, It's about thinking and doing and saying in the specific sense, right? This is what a society is. This is why societies are sort of awful, if you want to be honest. Um, but then we all benefit from them, myself included. Uh, so I think that was the point I wanted to make. Um, I don't think there's like an ideology of like techno-futurism or whatever it is that replaces this. People can say that, but it's always talking about what is possible within a society. And we see people like Elon Musk do this really well and a lot. He's been very successful with it. Sam Altman. If you talk to like Sergey Brin, the founder of Google, or anyone like this, at some point you can say, well, if there's a superior solution that speaks about preference, choice, and information, you're going to naturally have people select that. PayPal as well. Reid Hoffman and Peter Thiel, very famous for this. But there's also the dissonance where, I would just predict, beyond, people always say it's so easy. That's like sort of the nonsense or the whatever it is in tech. It's bullshit. Um, you know, Whatever you want to say for that. And yeah, in reality, you just get pushback, right? As you create inequality, as your society starts producing information that should indicate a different preference or choice is preferable or viable or possible. You don't have this sort of like money tree or this production tree. Everything's based off trade-offs and scarcity, or some form of action or activity and all this stuff. Yeah. So that's what I wanted to say. I don't think there's like one thing that gets over this. To me this seems a little more fundamental. Ideology is typically people say there's a description of the world, there's a problem, and then there's a thesis. To the antithesis. They're saying that there's a better system or place, but if you don't speak to preference or choice, and that's like what's his name, Mussolini. What he said is that when he talked about preference and choice, he would say people would never voluntarily choose to be liberal because, individualism is basically choosing to be small and choosing to be non-existent. And so people will naturally choose an authoritarian government over something else. And they'll, what he says is, I think the other sort of side of this, if we make Mussolini maybe a bit more philosophical and less pragmatic than he actually was, because, he's often associated with the realpolitik. He'd also tell you that people look at like communist or socialist, these progressive sort of regimes, and they will look at the sort of liberal idea and individualism, and ultimately what they will say is like these people are unethical, they're amoral, they're gonna try and hurt me, they're gonna make me smaller, non-existent, and I'm gonna be worse off for it. And so like the responsible thing to do in a society is to deploy a government that is what exists. It's a totality. It's a totalitarian regime. And metaphysically, getting into like sort of the historical and contextual relationship, you just accept reality. You just say that, well, look, if we don't have a shared political social bond, then as we go out in the world and relate to things, everything is going to be trying to hurt us. This is what a society does, is it sticks together. What a society does is it creates the definition of an individual, because without that, well, whatever, go live in the forest then, if that's what you want to do. If you want to invite a bunch of, whatever it is, chic, heathen, globe-trotting, cosmopolitan people over and have a dance party and then go work and do all this other stuff, well, go do that. See how that turns out in any society. That's what you people talk about. That's what you people want to ask for. That never works. That's the video.